named Anonymous Buffalo.
On our show notes
Wait,
page,
is it moving? Is it highlighting and moving around and doing stuff?
um,
Highlighting. Has it highlighted my name? Wait, request edit access. I should have edit access. I am signed in to us.
yeah, it's a anonymous buffalo here that is logged into this show notes sheet.
Uh, how interesting. I'm logged into the Gmail.
Hmm.
I'm going to change account to my personal account.
Now you're
I
in
have
with
edit.
anonymous buffalo.
There is. What
Do you
in
see
the. I
anonymous
do.
buffalo
I
there?
see it's green. Your
Yeah,
cursor is red
yeah.
or pinkish. Where is the cursor? Anonymous. What is happening? Okay.
Mm,
Is anonymous? Can you see anonymous?
I don't see them
Anonymous.
in the document. I just see that they are like right now. I can see that you're logged in and
It's
looking at it.
you.
What?
It's
How am I
Abby. It's
anonymous buffalo?
well. Hang on. There's no. You're IndigoCoaching.net. I'm Ryan.Baron at gmail.com.
Mm.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna try this. Testing. That's from my personal account. Oh, I can't get to the chat from. I think Anonymous Buffalo is our True North shared account. Let me look at this.
Well,
Personal
no,
info.
because you. Who is this? Oh, that just means chat. That's Ryan Bayron. Anonymous Buffalo doesn't give me any information.
Okay, so I just went to request edit access from
Hmm.
Anonymous. Okay, show topics. It's Ryan. Open sharing settings. Opening that. Um, adding True North Podcast at gmail.com. Okay, I've added. This is so weird. Oh, okay. Now, if I'm logged in as us on the Gmail, True North
Oh,
Podcast 11 at gmail.com.
Anonymous Buffalo is now gone. And you're logged in now as both you and True North, as yourself and True North. And Anonymous Buffalo was gone. That's weird.
Okay, so what it looks like is, weirdly enough, our True North Gmail email address
Mm-hmm.
did not have editing access, but was on the page. And if you're not logged in, don't have access, then it gives you an alias.
Okay.
And that alias was
Uh,
Anonymous Buffalo, which is wild because Buffalo does have a little bit of interesting meaning in my consciousness.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it's us. Yay.
There are 3 of us.
Some days it feels that way.
Should we start the thing?
We should start. Let's do it. We're 4.5 minutes in.
I want to do something. I want to do something though. I'm going to do the intro and then I'm going to do something.
Okay.
Welcome to the True North Podcast, where 2 practicing light workers get together every week to continue an ongoing conversation about wholeness and healing for body and mind so you can live as your true self and follow your true north. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Abby.
Okay, so what I want to do is
Mm-hmm.
I'm a part of that group called Men Living.
Okay.
And at the beginning of all of their Zoom calls, they do something that they call centering,
Mm.
where one person Usually my boy Sean, shout out to Sean, just kind of like walks people through like a 30-second, 1 minute little thing where they
Mm-hmm.
center themselves and kind of like take out the trash and get any part of them that's not here out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to do that. I don't know if this is going to be a regular thing, but I want to do it today because I feel like I personally need it.
Okay.
And so I want us to do it together. And if people are listening, they can do it together as long as they're not like driving in the car or something. And a lot of people listen
Please
on
pull
on,
over.
on 2x speed. And if you're going to do this with us, you're going to want to go to 1x speed. But okay, so first I want us to close our eyes, sit up all tall and straight and stuff. And if you can, put your feet flat on the ground. Take a moment, not even to focus on your breath, but just to be. And then head to toe, just do a quick body scan to find where you are holding stuff. Good stuff, bad stuff, past stuff, future stuff, doesn't matter. Just anything that's a thing. And without judgment, just allow your body to continue holding that stuff in those places, but just notice that that's where it's being held. And then breathe in and try to, whatever this means to you, direct that breath to that spot. Breathe into that spot in your body. Hold it there for a second and then let it out. We're not breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. We're just inviting our awareness and our life force into that area, reaching in to touch it, let it know that it's there, it's important, it's a part of us, and we see it. And then let it out. And one more time, inhale right to that spot. And exhale. And then open your eyes and shake it off.
Voila. Okay. How do you feel?
Thanks. I feel more prepared
Okay, good.
to be present in this conversation
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
How often do you do that?
As often as I jump on a call with the men's group, honestly.
You don't ever do that outside of your calls?
It's not, I don't do it on a regular basis.
Mm.
It's like a tool that I use in my toolbox when I feel like I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, my son has been the one who's taught me to do that by doing the thing that I taught him to do.
Hmm.
Because he can now notice when he's getting all worked up.
Mm-hmm.
And he has certain tools in his toolbox, and he'll tell us in the middle of throwing a tantrum that he wants to do one of the things that calms him down.
Mm.
But he'll do it with it. He still kind of like has this idea that he needs us to do it with him. And so he has a box of calm down toys, and they're all these like, tactile, colorful, manipulative things for him to just play with. And, and so he'll be in the middle of a fit and he'll just go, I want my calm down toys. And so we give him his calm down toys. And then like 3 seconds later, he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or in bed, I don't know where we got this idea, but my wife calls it mountain breathing. But we like take his palm and we trace our finger up one finger, and that's an inhale, and then we trace down that finger, and that's an exhale. And then for each of the 5 fingers, we just go up like we're climbing a mountains,
Yeah.
inhales and exhales. And so he'll be crying about something or throwing a fit or just really distraught over something, and he'll just say, "I want to do mountain breathing," and then we do mountain breathing, and
Mm-hmm.
it calms him down. And so I've kind of learned from him, watching him just keep himself in check and know how to use his tools and when to use them.
Mm-hmm.
That's been helping me be like, oh yeah, I can do that too. I can actually stop what I'm doing and center myself and breathe. And of course, that's a tool that I've had for years. He's
Mm-hmm.
teaching me what it looks like. He's modeling for me what it looks like to actively use it instead of just, kind of
Know that
like
it works and
smugly walk through my life knowing like some days it's just enough for me to know that I have the tool.
mm-hmm.
Like other people don't have these tools. I have these tools. But I don't use them. So like, what the fuck? Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the difference between a person who can't read and a person who doesn't. There is no difference,
Mm.
So he, I don't do it as often as I should, but I definitely do it more after
Mm-hmm.
watching my kid be better than I am at centering.
Well, the cool thing is he obviously got it from somewhere. So you've obviously done some good modeling if that's now what he's practicing. So, and that's what
That
you're
is
teaching him.
it's a good way to look at it. I prefer to
And
look
then
at it
he
that way.
becomes the teacher because he's reminding you to actually do it. But you are the second person today before we actually jumped on the call legitimately.
During the
Recording
illegitimate
it.
part of the call.
The off record part, you asked me how I was doing, and you were the second person that has today that specifically asked me how am I doing. And
Mhm.
I funny thing is, it's like I took a tip from Marie and I said, I don't know yet. I don't know yet
Ah.
how I'm doing because and it threw this person off and it's like, well, I haven't checked in with her. I don't
Mm.
know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And what I meant by that is exactly what you just did. I have not taken the time to get out of my head today to actually get into my body and figure out how I am. To take a temperature reading, temperature check, so to speak. So, because the crazy thing is, like, people miss this point so often that emotion and thought are different.
Mhm.
They're very different, and
Mhm.
thoughts are made up, and emotions are actual physical things that your body expresses. An emotion is energy in motion. I think
Mhm.
Marie even said that. And so to sit in your head and answer the question, how do you feel, is not going to be the truth.
Right.
And um and so I love that you did that exercise and then just showed people how easy it is to walk through that, because when you get to those places in your body where you feel stuck or you're holding on to that stuff, that's your emotion. That's what you can sit with and figure out what that is.
Mhm.
Is it stress? Are you overwhelmed? Are you saddened? Are you angry about something? Those places of tension that you hold are a key into how you feel, and you just simplified it. So many people just like, well, give me the tools. How do I do that? I'm like, it really is just get out of your head. Just get out of your head. Do a
Right.
body scan, go through your body, literally just paying attention to your body parts instead of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that still blows my mind to this day when she was just like, if someone asks you how you feel and you have an immediate answer, that answer is going to be wrong simply
Mhm.
because that answer is coming from your brain. So it's not how you feel, it's how you think you feel.
Mhm. Yep.
And just that one little idea when I engage with it, it's like, well, then like we had a tribe call some time ago where we're talking about feelings,
Mhm.
like the actual like what feelings are. And I think where I left that call was I don't know if I want to keep using the word feeling because it's
Mhm.
ambiguous, right?
Yeah, it
And we
is.
spent an hour trying to tease out emotions and
Mhm.
sensations,
Mhm.
right? And the emotions you're talking about, energy emotions, those are the things that we give names to, which are experiences that our minds create for us and layers on top of the things that we experience, right?
Mhm.
And then there are the sensations which exist in your body, and you hold emotions in your body, and you can check in with your body to see where the emotions are and what they are, but that's often different than what your brain thinks they are.
Mhm.
And so the word feeling kind of wraps up both of those, but they're two very separate things.
Yeah, right.
So after tapping into your body, it was just like for a minute, and it wasn't like a full body scan. But do you have a better idea of how you're feeling now after that centering exercise?
After my check-in?
Hmm.
Yes.
So I'll ask
Um,
again, how are you feeling?
agitated. I am
Oh
agitated.
no! Oh no!
Yeah. Um, and yeah, but the crazy thing is you can process an emotion within 90 seconds if you don't attach a story to it. You can
Hmm.
physically process it. And so that's the other part of the exercise that I want to point out for people is, okay, great. Now I feel agitated. What do I do with this? Well, don't
Hmm.
think about it, because you're just going to start creating this story, which creates anxiety and worry and baseless projection into the future. Do exactly what you did. Breathe life into it. Sit with it for just a second. What else does it have to tell you? Is it a story? Is there a picture that comes up for you? You see things in colors. You see sounds in color. So it wouldn't surprise me if you get to a body part and you see a color.
Hmm.
Um, and so just sit with that for a while, breathe life into it, breathe light into it, and then release it. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to go away or that you don't have something to process or figure out, but at least for that moment, you are not going to be carrying it around, and you certainly aren't going to be spending your time running around in circles in your mind trying to make it mean something, right? That's part of, I think, being in your true north and seriously trusting in the universe is like, okay, I'm obviously agitated by something and I don't want to
Mhm.
make up a story about it. So I'm just going to trust in the universe that that's going to be revealed to me. I have the intention to sit with this. I want to know what this is. I want to release it from my body, but I also don't want to make up a story. And just
Mm.
knowing that it will be whatever sign, whatever message comes to you, it's going to be revealed to me when it needs to. Right. It'll be in my morning writing. It'll pop up in meditation. I'll be doing something completely mindless, like doing the dishes, and all of a sudden I'll be like, oh shit, there it is.
Mhm.
Because all of it's working below the surface, you know. And if you put that intention out there and that energy that you want to resolve that feeling that you felt without having to over process it in your mind, then trust that it'll come out, and it does.
Do you think every single emotion can be dealt with internally?
Well, it's your experience, it's your emotion. So if it's dealt with externally, that to me would indicate that you're sitting in somebody else's business.
Well, if you like go into the word agitate, like the first time I actually heard that word was in terms of the anatomy of a washing machine, because that arm in the
Hmm.
middle that does this is called the agitator.
Yeah.
And that word just means that something that's not you disturbed you, shook you up, spun you up, put you in motion. Like there's an
Friction.
external, yeah, there's an external thing that did the agitating.
Hmm.
Otherwise, the agitate. So in that case, you say like sit with it and don't attach a story to it. But the what I hear when you use that word is that the only reason you're agitated is because of a story that already exists.
Well, so that I'm not focusing on the actual agitator. I don't want to sit and focus on the external thing that is agitating me. I
So you're
want to
focused on
actually
the fact that
know
you are agitated,
that I am agitated and why am I in this place of agitation?
which is what you were trying to do in the last episode with that fucking Facebook post.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes,
you're
it
like,
was.
let's deal with me and how I process the thing. And I was like, no, we're gonna tear down this post.
Because at the end of the day, like, I don't care about this girl. Not in that way. I care about her on a human level. It is respectfully, I don't give a shit what she posts. If she has
Right,
a problem with life coaches, I'm not going to get attached to that. I
right.
don't know her. I don't know her story. For all I know, she had a hysterectomy. There's something she's bringing to the table. And yes, it's like that I was trying to like separate myself from her and be like, this is an example of, and you are being a friend and like attacking the girl. Like,
I was. I
no.
was like, I'm gonna stalk this person on the internet and figure out. And here's all the logical fallacies. No, 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 no. While you were trying to talk about your own personal growth, I was like, no, this person's attacking you. Let's attack her back. And then I spent the second half of the episode being like, we should see humans as human beings and
Yes.
fragile in spite of our differences. And like such a. I listened to that episode and I was like, man, I was just full of shit. Just full to my eyeballs of just shit.
Mm. Brene Brown calls that bullshitting.
Yes, I was. Well, that's one of the reasons I wanted to center, because I've noticed that in that episode, in the Rob Bell interview before that, in
Hmm.
our episode before that, in some conversations I've had offline, in our tribe calls, in a
Hmm.
lot of conversations that have been meaningful conversations, I'll look back at them, and it's a normal human thing to do that, to like lay awake in bed, just like repeating conversations that have gone on, and then thinking about how you could have done better. Like everybody does.
Hmm.
Everyone who's gotten in a debate thinks like 2 days later, oh, I should have said this, right?
Yeah.
But the common theme is going back to the tools. I have tools to be a present listener. I know how to be a present listener. I know how
Hmm.
to be with a person. I know how to hold space for them to have their experience. I know how to resist my urge to try to fix and be a solution, or to go on the attack when someone triggers me. I know how
Hmm.
to I know how to do all that stuff. I'm the one who wrote the fucking thing on how to handle when you're defensive.
Hmm.
But lately I haven't been using any of them. None of them. I've been reviewing so many conversations I've had on the air, off the air, that and then the one like common denominator is I'm just choosing not to use any of my tools and just be a mess, just be an ego-driven, reactive, thoughtless mess of a person.
How did you come to this conclusion?
I just took inventory of how I've been showing up in the last couple of weeks and months.
But what prompted that? What was the catalyst into like going down that rabbit hole?
Well, you know, I think it was the Rob Bell interview. Because holy shit did I fangirl so hard.
You sure did.
And everybody I was talking to afterwards, they were like, "You were nervous?"
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, man, I look up to this guy so much. And I had so many desires and just junk that I brought into it, ways that I wanted him to respond to me positively or like a thing that I said or something like that. And it was not at all.
So you were in your ego mind?
Yes, and I was very seldomly during that conversation was I actually thinking about bringing his voice to our audience. How can this benefit the audience? How can we,
Mm.
it was all just like I get to talk to Rob Bell for an hour. And I mean, like I listened to that interview and I spent the next day. The next day was it sucked.
Hmm.
The next day sucked because it was such a big moment for me. And I was just looking at how I showed up and I just was not an interviewer. I was not a podcast host. I was not, I just checked out.
Hmm.
And and in my own story that I told myself, I could have and should have showed up so much better, showed so differently in that interview. And I was just like, I was beating myself up the whole next day
Mm.
for how I showed up in that conversation. And then, of course, my the judging part of my brain is very hungry for evidence, and so it started scraping other reasons to like, hey, let's look at this
You're
conversation, let's
yeah,
look at this one,
connecting
let's
the
look at this one,
dots.
and so
Yep.
then it's like it's like hungry hippos. You just hit the handle and just keeps on scooping in more things. It's like, oh yeah, you also showed up bad here, also you didn't do this conversation right, also, and so then like,
You have
but
so much, you have to do something with it.
yeah, and part of it is like I've opened up to a couple close friends about this, and they're all like, "Oh, you're being too hard on yourself." I'm like, okay, yeah, that's in there, but so are the facts. And the part where I'm hard on myself is that I'm judging myself for how I showed up and regretting it, living in the past about it, and just
Mhm.
ruminating and circling and looking at all the shoulds that are never going to happen.
Mhm.
But it's also true if you just take an objective look at the inventory of experiences that I've collected to scrutinize, there is an objective common theme of I could have shown up
Mm.
better if I had chosen to use any of my human relational tools that are at my disposal.
What you say better, what makes it better than what you are doing?
I guess when I say better, I mean I should like less ego driven
Okay.
because the ego wants to defend, the ego wants you to like me, the ego wants to come out on top, the ego wants to win, you know, all those things. The ego wants to look good, and those have been kind of the motivators behind a lot of how I've been showing up lately.
So going in that way, do you feel that before coming to sort of this revelation, did you come out of it feeling that you met those ego goals?
Like
Or
the
was that
ego's
even
well, I mean, it's kind of like if my ego gets what it wants, I also still feel worse about that.
right? That's
Like
what I
that's
was
another
wanting.
reason.
Okay,
That's a
yeah.
reason to judge myself too. It's like when two people get in an argument, it doesn't matter who wins. You both lose because you both feel like shit afterwards.
Yeah,
You
right.
know. And
Mhm.
so if my ego gets what it wants, great, great. My ego won. What does that mean? What does that say about me and how far I've come? And if my ego doesn't get what it wants, then my ego's throwing a fit. And
Mhm.
so I mean, that's why I start to really, really, really resonate with Eckhart Tolle's work. Just get rid of the ego. Like it's a
Yeah,
lose lose
right.
when you operate that way.
Lose your
And
mind.
and so that's what I mean better. I guess maybe better is I was gonna say I
What
could have come up with a better word than better, but I've been very egoic lately, and I have tools to not be, and I haven't been using
you're
them.
out of balance. You're out of
Yes,
balance. You're not
yeah,
necessarily worse, you're out of balance. You're letting the ego drive
sure,
instead of keeping it in check.
yes, and I have been for a while, and then I've been
Okay.
going back and thinking like, well, if this has happened, then if I had done this, and then the conversation would have been blah blah. I don't even know if it would have been quote unquote better, but I know that I would have felt better about how I showed up.
Okay, that's the key. Say that again.
I don't know that the conversation would have been better, but I would have felt better about how I showed up.
Okay, great. So you're not I like see what the reason why I wanted you to repeat that is because you pointed out that you're still not attached to the outcome. Like you don't
No,
know that the conversation could have gone better because you're right, we don't know. And you can't sit in that what if. Like that's just ridiculous spin out right there.
right.
But you do have within your control knowing whether or not you would feel better. And you have the evidence that when you stay in your soul mind or you keep the two in balance and the ego mind's in check, you feel better about how you show up. And that's the
Yes.
key. Like it's not being my business of or how Rob Bell felt you did or how I felt you did or anybody else, but you would have felt better had you been in balance showing up.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
big distinction.
And that helps because then if I go back to if I go back to a conversation that does take a turn,
Hmm.
but I know that I showed up the best that I could, the least egoic, then
Yes,
I don't really have that much to regret about that. At
exactly.
least not that I can own and do something about.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it is. Like I think regret in my experience can be used as a tool. Like it's still an emotion. You still have to process it and then you
Hmm.
eventually have to let it go. But in the processing is finding out why you regret the things that you regret and then what can I do about it moving forward. Not
Yes.
to like to prevent myself, future me, from staying up until 1:30 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, but so that if and when that happens, I'm able to know that I showed up as the best that I could.
Hmm. Because it does, I mean, it does happen. It does happen where we do allow our egos to get out of control. But if you sit in the what ifs, then it's very self-destructive. Like that's not loving yourself at all,
No.
but yet you can own, right? Okay, I so showed up as my ego self. I wish I would have said this. So how can I choose to show up differently? Like instead of just sitting with it and just beating yourself up over and over, recognize that it's there, own it, and then make a shift. And I love that.
Right.
So I want to ask you a question. We had a conversation at our planning meeting at my old office a while ago, and you'd
Mhm.
mentioned a conversation you'd had with someone. Um, is this the same? Are you connecting the dots? The person that you told me, I'm trying not to share your experience or their experience. So I am being so
Yes. You're
evasive
being
here.
very vague because
Yeah. But you said you had a conversation with somebody, this good friend of yours, and this good friend said that you were showing up this way to condense that conversation is
yeah,
that your
yeah,
friend was saying you were showing up more with your ego mind.
uh-huh.
And you were asking me if I felt the same,
Right,
like if I noticed that in you.
right.
Is this that same conversation or is that a different? Do you see where I'm going with this? Or do we need to talk about this offline?
Both.
Okay.
I do see where you're going with it. Um, I think that it's one of those things where every conversation is a smaller part to a bigger conversation.
Right. That's maybe leading up to something.
Yes,
Hmm.
or that's just like part of the flow of life.
Hmm.
And I have one friend who I called myself out for being very combative with this person lately,
Mm.
and I was like, "Thanks for continuing to show up. I haven't been my best, and I'm gonna work on it." That's all it
Mm.
was. And then they were like, "Yes, you have been very combative lately," and
Mhm.
and so I'm kind of figuring it out. And for me, what I like to do is I like to start at the top level, the experiential level that can like the phrase I use is it provable in court? Not that you'd take it to court, but that just means that it's backed in like somewhat objective facts that can
Mhm.
be verified, right? And so going back to like the Rob interview, I asked him a question and he basically said, "That's such an uninteresting question." you know, that whole category of question is something that I find cringeworthy. And I remember like I felt my insides just drop. And
Mhm.
so then later I'm thinking, well, you know what? The buildup was good. But instead of asking this, I should have done that, taken that same buildup and then said, "What was it like for you?"
Mm.
Because that would have called back something that he had said, and then
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I had said that, I would have gotten a different reaction, right? But A, I don't know that that's true.
Yeah.
B, I don't know that that response would have been better. C,
Mhm.
it could be that the question I did ask led him to say something that led you to say something that got us to where we got at the end. So it was
Right?
all just kind of a necessary thing.
Mhm.
And then so I start digging into like uh what is it about my alternative preferred question that makes me wish I had asked it instead? Why do I wish that instead of asking this, I had asked that? My ego says, well, because he didn't react to this one the way I thought he wanted to. And
Sure, the way you
but
wanted.
then,
Mhm.
but like, okay, well, let's dig a little bit deeper. The question I asked if I'm being honest with myself, I was trying to impress him, and it
Mm.
bombed. But the question I wish I had asked would have come from me having been present with something he had said earlier. And so, what I really wished, if I look at the particulars and why I feel the way I feel about the particulars, the thing behind the thing, undergirding that beneath that, is that I wished I had been more present with what he
Mm-hmm.
was saying.
Yeah.
And that is a valuable thing to take away from that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go to like, oh, if I was more present, then like you don't go into the events because you're not in that space anymore. You've gone deeper, right? And you can take that desire to have been more present in the past and then transplant that into the present and say, okay, well, how can I apply that here? Where you're not worried about the particulars. You're not thinking about what am I going to say that's going to evidence that I'm being present. You're just being present.
Mm-hmm.
And then you use tools at your disposal, like starting a conversation with centering, to make sure that anything that would pull you out of the here and now is respectfully shoved off your plate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, in that regard, I honestly think that laying there ruminating about it did produce some good.
Well, yes, and you do bring up the point that like I do believe that everything happens for a reason, right?
Hmm.
And I think the Rob Bell interview went exactly the way that it was supposed to go,
Yes.
regardless
Yes.
of how you or I or he showed up. And to Nora Ephron said this all the time. She just said life is copy. Everything in life is copy. And it's so true. Every experience you have can be used to build on the next moment, right?
Hmm.
Um, gives you experience, gives you tools, gives you awareness. And I think like that's what I'm hearing you say that you're taking out of this. Like, yeah, there's some things you could certainly go back and change, but the fact is it is what it is. It's exactly what it should be. And I know now that hearing you say this going into the next interview where you highly respect the person that we're um, interviewing, that you will change how you show up, right? Because that was a significant thing from you, and you chose to be aware and learn from it.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So, um,
And going back to your question, when with other relationships in my life that are not our interview guests, that desire to be present as a motivator to show up better can translate perfectly into those other relationships, into those other dynamics, those other situations.
mhm.
Because at the end of the day, every single time I look back at a thing that doesn't go the way I wished it had gone, that I didn't show up the way I wish I had shown up, it all comes back to a lack of being present
Mhm.
for me.
So let's like unpack that for a second, because being present, okay, when you say that, like on the surface, it means you're fully paying attention, you're here. But I really want to talk about what that means, because you were present in the interview. We had this flow of conversation. It wasn't like you were so gone that it was sort of like lost. But
There was a
what,
point where you both called me out for being not there,
yeah,
like
well, right.
verbally
But there
on, like,
was.
"Hey Ryan, where are you? You're gone." Like I was not.
Yes, you were not there at one point. But even when you were present, like I think what I'm hearing you say is that even when appearances look like maybe you were present, in your mind you were probably formulating your next question or what you're going to say to
Yes,
him, or wondering how he's going to respond versus listening to
right.
really what he was saying. So being present is just literally sitting in someone else's space, not sitting in their business, but just truly, like, you, when they're talking, you're not in your mind formulating your question, your argument, your follow up. You are truly listening, even between the lines, to what they're not saying. That's what being present means when you're with another human, connecting.
Yes, you're right. How often do we get in a conversation where someone's saying something and while they're talking, we think we know the entirety of what they're going to say, and so then we decide to start formulating our response so that when they're done
Hmm.
talking, we can talk.
Yeah.
And then everything they say after that is gone. And then God forbid they take a turn and then it goes somewhere else that you weren't prepared. Now you have this thing that in your brain you've typed out, like you've typed up the
Yeah,
text message,
exactly.
but now the conversation's gone somewhere else. And so then like, you're caught in this tension and then it takes you out of it. And one of
Uh-huh.
the strategies I developed, I didn't develop, I actually learned this from someone, but then kind of took it my own direction, was if that's just how your brain works, then what I do is I repeat back to myself in my own voice in my head what the other person is saying while they're saying it.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
then to go further, I imagine that on the bottom of my field of vision is a closed caption of
Okay.
everything they're saying word for word. And
Right.
so then even the parts of my brain that create new things and thoughts while my
Mm-hmm.
ears are listening are still creating and the experience of what the other person's bringing to it. There's no room left in my brain to take me anywhere other than where the other person is. It's all
Well,
focused back on them.
and I love that tool because basically you're giving your lizard something to do.
Yeah.
You're distracting your lizard by having a marquee sign in your brain, repeating everything they say, quietly to yourself. It's like you're keeping that lizard busy so you can really hear what they're saying.
Or
And
just
then,
inviting the lizard in to participate with this instead of whatever else lizard wants to go
yeah,
do.
right. But
Yeah.
that's right. Exactly what I mean. And then, there's something to, I love this saying, embrace the silence.
Mm.
And the crazy thing is, silence makes people very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice, if I'm in a very heavy conversation with you, or sometimes you ask something to me that is about me, you will probably notice a very long pause.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are you upset with me? Would be an example.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pausing. Well, typically that makes people think, oh shit, she's pissed.
She's trying to
Right.
figure out how to say it so it doesn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah. And so it's like, but I am fully embracing the silence for a couple of reasons. Number one, because I have been trying to be fully present, understanding what you're saying. And now that you're done talking, I need to figure out now, like, that's my moment to say, okay, how do I think about that? What do I feel about that? How
Because
do
you
I want
weren't
to
doing
respond
it
to
in your
this?
head while they were talking.
Exactly,
Right.
because I wasn't doing it. And then I can give you kind of that real responsive answer instead of it just being reactive. Like, I've already thought about it. I already just, I wasn't really paying attention to what you're saying because it triggered something in me, a thought, whatever, that I want to tell you about. And so, you know, when you can really connect with someone, it is incredibly vulnerable to embrace the silence because it can be a little bit scary. No one knows what to expect out of your mouth, but I do feel it's a more responsive way. And then it gives space for that other person. And that's eventually what you do this over time. And the people that you're trying to connect and build relationship with will start to see that you embracing the silence is truly honoring them as well. Because you're saying to them that you've taken the time to really listen to what they have to say. And now you need a moment to kind of process your response, right?
Right.
So that's anyway, something else I wanted to throw out there about being present also means embracing the silence, just taking a minute.
Yeah, silence is itself a form of communication.
Hmm.
And it's uncomfortable because we're always tempted to insert our own story into what that is that's being communicated. It's very open for interpretation.
Hmm.
And so if I know you and you're being silent, I know what that's communicating and I'm grateful for it because it communicates that you're being present and you're trying to be
Hmm.
mindful. But if I don't know you and you're being silent, that could also create space for me to go off into the woodworks of my own mind and create all kinds of stories about what might be happening. And then I
Hmm.
generate fears around those. And then
Hmm.
my amygdala doesn't know that that's not really happening. So then my nervous system kicks into gear. And so
Yep.
then before you even open your mouth, I'm already in fight or flight. And I'm going to be defensive
Exactly.
to what you say, no matter what you say. So
Yes.
then the other step is on top of being silent, honoring other people's silence.
Hmm.
And that even means when they don't respond to you immediately over text, or when you ask a question or send an email or some type of non personal communication and they don't
Hmm.
fire back right away. One thing I love to do is assume that they're just taking time to craft a meaningful answer,
Hmm.
whether or not they are. that assumption is like that puts up a wall between me and all the other assumptions that want to get in and mess with my nervous system.
Yeah, right. Right. That it's such a fantastic shift. Instead of sitting there and making up a story about why they're not responding to you, just simply giving them the space that, okay, yeah, they love and care about you enough. But then that comes from, so that goes back to this idea that receiving is self love, right? Because
Mm.
then in order to say that, there has to be this level of, well, they love me enough. And if
Mm-hmm.
you, to acknowledge that someone loves you, you have to love yourself to know that you're lovable.
Right.
Like, I have to feel lovable to recognize that you could possibly love me, and that your lack of response in a timely fashion that works for me is really just your way of loving me, right? But you have
Right.
to be receiving to that. And that's a tricky place to stay in, because you're exactly right. The sequence of your brain and how it operates, you can immediately go into fight or flight when you start creating all these stories. And then you create insecurities in yourself, and then you start telling stories about me. Abby's
Mm-hmm.
unapproachable. She um doesn't like talking about deep things. Like, you could make up a whole bunch of stuff about me just because I'm taking a moment to honor what you said and then really think about my response. So, because that's what I get all the time. I am a quiet person. I'm sort of that fly on the wall. I really want to listen to what you have to say, and it may take me a while to get back to you. And a lot of times that makes people feel um, that I'm not approachable.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
I mean,
interesting.
it may be that for some flavors of personality, you're not,
Hmm.
and that's okay. Because
But
the people
yeah,
who need to interact with someone who's just going to fire back a response, you're not what they're after. You know.
exactly. And that's the beauty of humanity. Like, I don't want everybody to be the same. It's like,
Right.
I've been grateful for this before. The people that enjoy politics and accounting and all these horrible things that I'm like, get me out. It just makes me cringe. But I love that there are people in the world that want to talk about it and debate, and that actually do it, and they get into it, and they're passionate about it. And so I, it's like, great. If you're not that person for me, then you're not in my tribe, and that's okay.
Because there are other tribes, which is why a tribe is a tribe.
Yes, right. And that doesn't mean that I can't love you from afar and connect with you like, yep, you're a human and I'm a human. We can find common ground, but that doesn't mean you have to be within my circle. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And this isn't
There.
you like kicking people out and saying, I don't want to have anything to do with you. It's just saying, like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't respond immediately to everything. And if that's a problem for you, then we're only going to
Yeah.
go so deep together.
Yeah.
And there's
Right.
no, and that's just what it is.
And that's another form of self-love, because then I'm recognizing and owning that that's who I am, and I'm not going to feel bad about it, and I'm not going to change it, because
Right.
I know why I'm doing it. I know my motivations and my intentions. And if that bothers you and triggers you, that's your story you've got to figure out. And that may just mean you're right, that that's a different tribe you need to be in. And that should be okay for both of us.
Right. Some of the people I respect the most, like, this is one thing that you can do to get my respect like easily and more quickly than just about anything else, is be a person who speaks impeccably, who takes time to like not waste words,
Hmm.
and cares about what you say and how you say it, to the point where like most of my favorite people just speak slowly.
Hmm.
Just don't say a lot,
Yeah.
and takes a while to get through a sentence, and there are pauses, and I am on the edge of my seat
Uh-huh.
because I'm like, what's
Uh-huh.
gonna come
Uh-huh.
out is gonna be so great. This person is gold.
That's awesome.
And because I respect that so much about people, and because I'm such a talker and I'm so reactive and I'm so not that way, there's this tension within me where like I want to grow into that and become that, because I love it so much when I see it in other people.
Hmm.
But then I've also heard that if I've heard a lot of people say that like if I talked less, people would think there was something wrong with me. Like, are
Yeah.
you okay? Are you okay?
Right.
You're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your mouth is not running right now. So it's almost like it's an intrinsic property of who and what I am to just be really
Hmm.
wordsy. you know. So
Hmm.
for me, I just live in this tension of having a great amount respect and admiration for people who are very mindful with their words, and also being someone who's just kind of not, and learning how to
Mhm.
be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm always, I feel like I'm always trying to move in the direction of kind of where you are, where I think before I speak all the times.
Mhm.
I don't know that I have hope of ever really getting there, whatever getting there looks like.
Mhm.
But I think as long as I'm pointed in that direction, for now at least, that feels like a good direction to go.
Well, life is practice, so that's exactly what it is. Practice is intentional. Um, doesn't matter.
Intentionality.
Yeah, and it's you are wordsy, and we've talked about this before in the past, but like that's also needed. And I guess that's where I'm going, like I said to you in the past, you have so much energy, and part of that is carried in your words. Like I have a book that I read to my son called Wordy Birdie, and
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure you're Wordy Birdie. Uh, wordy birdie, wordy birdie, wordy birdie. And but it's just like, but wordy birdie is so much fun,
I am
and like
described as fun a lot.
there's just an energy to you. And like I know we've said this on the past, or this is deja vu. Like the fun when I do those character strength tests,
Yep, you've
and
said
there's
this
like maybe
before.
25 things, fun will be 25 on my list. And I'm sorry, but you can't have 10 of me at a party and expect to have a good time. Like it's not going to be
That's
fun.
that
So
is so bizarre to me. That is so bizarre to me. I don't think I've ever experienced you as not being fun.
here's why. Here's why. And this is here we come full circle. Like this is
Hmm.
the crucial
Hmm.
difference,
Hmm.
because we've got you over here, my wordy birdie friend, full of energy, full of fun. You have me over here who's quiet and introverted. But when the two of us come together, like you don't describe me as that. That's not your experience of me, because we have a way of connecting with each other because we talk about really meaningful shit.
We pull it out of each other, I think. I'm
Yes.
more mindful with my words when I talk to people who are more mindful with their words.
Okay.
And maybe
So
I bring out the fun side.
exactly, exactly. That's just it. And it's
Oh, this is
because
not even the first place I've heard this.
you are willing to go to a deeper level. So that engages me because that's sort of my strength. I'm not one for having surface conversations or
Right.
having, long conversations about farm raised fish. Just kidding.
We stayed on the phone talking about that maybe for like
Okay.
30 minutes after everyone else got off the tribe call.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
It was
So
fantastic.
so you may not see me as not fun, because I think that when you are engaging with me on that deep level, because it's kind of pulling me out, it is still fun for you. And then it does become fun for me. But does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that we just rub off on each other. And well, here's the other thing is like people tend to treat non-superficial topics like some level of sacredness is necessitated. Like we have to change gears and we have to get serious and like
Yeah.
and I don't, everything's funny to me. Like there's nothing that's out of bounds. There's nothing that's more heavy or serious than anything else. So like, and
Yeah.
I love diving into just the real shit. I love diving into the real shit, but I also don't have contempt for surface level shit. Like I can what do they call it? Shooting the breeze, small talk. I can make small
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
all day and I'll be fine. I won't be like, look at you, shallow person. I don't respect you because you're not. But then I've met people who the very first conversation we had was about why they're unhappy in their job and what their soul calling is, and like we just
Mm-hmm.
go straight into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that those are all equal to me, and they're all fun, and they're all
Mm-hmm.
equally accessible and normal and okay. And I think what that does is it invites people to to engage with the things that they don't feel free to engage with in just like regular
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah. Now, let me be clear. If we're making small talk, I don't think it's a waste of time. Like I'm not that person.
I
Like
don't think you are.
I am above this or
But have
whatever.
you seen
But
those
I will
Facebook
say,
posts? You know what I'm talking about? Where they're like, I don't want small talk. I want the deep stuff. Blah 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 blah. Like, you know those. Have you
Yeah,
seen
but you
those?
know, to get to the deep stuff, I haven't seen that, but to get to the deep stuff, you have to kind of start somewhere, right? Like I have
Yeah.
to be able to establish a psychological safety with you before I just start unloading.
Right.
Um, and I had a conversation with somebody that I'm working with just this morning. We went for a walk, and she's like, I haven't told anybody any of this stuff. I'm like, well, this is really heavy stuff, right?
Hmm.
But I apparently came off across to her that I was someone that was safe enough to share that information. So sometimes it is a feeling and you can literally just jump right in. And that's how it's been with her. We have
Mm.
just jumped right in. We've not even scratched the surface with small talk. And then there's other people where it's like, I need to test the waters first. But I do know for me that someone that's kind of intuitive and really picks up on other people, I expend a lot of energy on small talk and it
Mm.
exhausts me. And
More
not
than
to
you
the
spend
point,
on big talk.
yeah, yeah, because it's like I'm constantly, what it is for me is if I'm small talking, now if I know you, like if we have a deep connection, a relationship already, great. Small talk is fine because we've established that. I know your heart, I know your intentions, I know like that's easy for me. But if you are
Mm.
new to me, it's like my energy is putting out these feelers, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly like, okay, where are you going with this? Why do you say that? What's
Mm.
driving this? What, yeah, how come, it's like, and so it is, if you're new to me and we're making small talk, it's incredibly energy depleting.
It's taxing because you have all those. Is that, do
Yeah.
you think that gets in the way of being present with them?
Sometimes, but also I think that's part of the exhaustion is because I am so present and it is
Yeah.
pulling so much from me because I do want to be present. Like obviously if I'm putting out the feelers, I'm present enough that I want to get to know you.
Right.
And but I guess, that's a good thing I need to sit with because it could also mean here's what's going on in my head. I have a level of social awkwardness that I don't really talk about. Like I'm constantly in my head when I'm around people like, "Oh my gosh, don't say that. Don't look stupid. Do this. Don't do that." Like, I want people to like me. So show up this way. So that's sort of like the backdrop of when I'm in this social place of a bunch of people I don't know all that well. Um okay, perfect example. When we had our retreat with Kathleen with the tribe members, the tribe know me in this little square box on a screen.
Hmm.
And then I show up in full form and I'm like, don't screw this up. Don't give them
Really?
anything that would question what they know of you in that small box.
Wow.
So maybe I'm not present then fully. And I guess I need to sit with
Well,
this and I
I didn't
appreciate
mean for
that
there to be a should.
challenge.
I didn't mean
No, no,
for it to
no.
sound
But
like there was
no,
a
this
should in
okay,
there.
here's the thing. I guess should, you're right, is not. I am now curious about this
Okay.
because then I'm not fully present.
Well, you
Like
also
I
don't
am
owe it
putting
to
out my
strangers to be
feelers.
present with them.
This is true, but at the same time, I need to know if it's my because I've also been told way back when I saw Marie the very first time, and I had a session with her. She's like, everything you feel in a social situation is not yours. Your
Hmm.
soul is so old, and it's wise that people, their souls, when they're meeting you, freak the fuck out. Not what she said, but that's how I take it. And so then all of a sudden, because you didn't know, you're reading that as your own
Yeah.
insecurity and your own awkwardness. So that's a lot of times what I'm thinking too. Like, am I really the one that's awkward, or is it just they're feeling insecure around my soul energy? Like, I'm trying to
Yeah.
process that too, right? So this has got me very curious. Stay tuned.
Yeah, we're gonna maybe probably not follow up on this.
But okay, so you said you don't owe them a
You don't owe
stranger.
strangers presents. You owe
Why?
yourself
They're another human. Why?
because they may not be a safe person for you.
So you're
And for you to
implying
go
them,
and freely occupy their space and let them in that far is not something you owe to somebody who hasn't shown that they're a safe person for you to do that with.
but they no, my opening up is to their energy. It's not me necessarily letting them in a conscious, Like they don't, I'm not consciously opening the door for them.
Okay.
I
If
am
I'm
okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna take this very controversial. Let's take about no, I don't want to go there because then it's gonna totally derail the topic. Okay, I'm just taking somebody. Okay, just anybody. I meet somebody new.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know them. Okay, we were up at the golf course clubhouse the other night. Christy, my wife, plays golf, and some of her friends came by.
Mhm.
I don't know them other than
Mhm.
the stories that she has told me. I
Mhm.
know her experience of them. So I'm meeting them for the first time, and I was wiped out by the time we got home, just
Mm.
totally exhausted. And the thing is, though, is like I'm present for them in a way that I want to really see them as who they are. Like, I want
Mhm.
to know what they're bringing to the table. I'm trying to constantly read between the lines to get a gauge on what lessons you're learning, what you're here to do, and then um so I'm letting you in that way, but that doesn't mean I'm revealing anything to me or anything about me that would feel unsafe
That makes
in
sense.
conversation. That was a long-winded explanation. There
Well,
is
yeah.
somewhere else I want to go. I'm going to make a note.
Do you want to go there
Not
now?
today. No, because this is the Christmas episode and I don't want to talk about that on Christmas.
We have not talked about Christmas at all. I am
And we don't
wearing
have to. It's just this
my
episode is going to be
Christmas.
aired.
This is my one Christmas sweater.
Okay.
It's a Batman sweater.
I
That's
love
about as
it.
festive as I get.
Okay. Awesome.
Do
Merry
you want to do
Christmas.
gratitude?
Wow, are we there?
That's what she said. I don't know. I mean, we.
So I don't okay, I just so I want to but before no, let's finish this. I do feel like I owe a stranger being present
Oh, that's a
because
good distinction.
I think it is if I am not present with you, then I am not acknowledging your humanness.
Well, there's a difference between, I think, maybe we're splitting hairs here, but I see a difference between being present with a person and being present.
Okay.
Like, if you're
Okay.
present with what is, then that's the Eckhart Tolle surrendering to reality, not wishing that it was something that it wasn't, not wishing that it was something that wasn't. Yeah, right. And so you're just present with the fact that what's happening is happening.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, being present with a person is to mentally, emotionally, spiritually sit next to them and be in what they're in with them.
That is very different because that's very
So that's
vulnerable.
what I'm saying. You don't owe to
Yeah,
strangers you haven't felt out yet. But being
that
present in
is
a more
correct.
universal sense, like just being present with what is and what's happening, then I mean, I don't. Yeah, that's something that I
Got it.
think it's a good thing for us to strive for in all of our
It's a good
circumstances, because then that kind of presence can tip you off when there is a reason to not be more open with a person.
right.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good distinction. I'm glad that got fleshed out. I feel better about that now.
And the whole point of all of this is to be able to sleep at night knowing that we feel good about how
How you showed
we
up.
showed up.
Yeah, if you're constantly moving in that direction, you are moving towards your true north.
Yes. We. uh, you want to know something really weird?
Yes, always.
The phrase true north is becoming a trigger for me.
Oh no. Oh no. Why?
Well, we have this podcast called the True North podcast, and we talk about True North, and we've interviewed people about
Who are
your
doing
True
that?
North.
Yeah.
We have a tribe of people who are
Mm-hmm.
like meeting with us every week, online and offline, and doing all kinds of stuff. And I know we're doing a reflection episode next week for the New Year's, but the idea of True North just still seems so amorphous.
Mm.
Like, I don't know that we've really, really solidified anything for anyone or given like, could someone listen to our entire library of podcast episodes and honestly say, "Oh, I feel like I'm more equipped to figure out my true north now"? Like I mean, the reason it's become, and maybe the answer is yes, because I've been too busy talking to talk to myself about conversations I've had recently than talk to myself about taking inventory of every tool we've given people. And maybe it's because we got invited to do that online course thingy. But I'm just wondering, like, when we say true north, have we clearly communicated what we are talking about when we say that? And do the people who follow our work feel empowered because of our work and informed and more able to actually move in the direction of their true north, to know with more clear vision what their true north is or how to figure it out? Like, is that concrete? Is that you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so because I don't know that the answer is yes, it becomes, I make it a problem for myself to hear that phrase, because then if the answer is no, then we're wasting everyone's time.
Well, I
you
have a
know?
couple I have a couple of thoughts to that. First of all, if you're worried about does someone else feel empowered and does someone else feel like we've defined true north, we're sitting in their business.
Oh, yeah, but we're also trying to
The
provide
other thing,
value to people.
the other thing,
There's nothing in
we
here. I just keep drinking.
started this. We started this for the purpose of it just being raw, just showing up exactly how we are and sharing our experiences.
Yes.
The other thing is someone just reached out that we both know very well to us personally, telling us how it started a little bit discombobulated and how it's finally coming to this place of like, okay, I can see where we're going. I now recognize your path.
Mm.
Then I also want to give you the evidence that we have reviews on the Apple Podcast platform
Okay.
that
Yeah.
people took the time, when they don't have to, leave a review about how True North has impacted them.
Mm.
We have a tribe of people that keep showing up week after week. I keep thinking in the back of my mind, pretty soon nobody's going to come to the call. And they keep coming. They
Mm.
keep coming to the call. They keep showing up. And so that may be what your mind is saying, but the evidence is not, that's not going to hold up in court, Ryan.
Oh, shit. You know what? You know what? Hang on. Let me sit in silence and process this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
No. No, that was a front. That was what Rob was talking about when he was mentioning the people who are in their heads trying to solve the problem when their hearts have great clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think the reason it's triggering for me is because I don't feel like I'm a damn inch closer to figuring out what my true north is.
Hmm.
And it feels like fraud
There it
to
is.
have the podcast called True North.
And you be one of the co-hosts of something that you don't feel you are.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, I have a lot of voices in my head who are pointing me in a direction. And I have a lot of voices in my head pointing me in a lot of directions. And some are louder than others. Some come with greater consequences than others. And I think lately it's been really, really, really difficult to trust myself and really believe that I'm capable of having a good handle on which voices to listen to, including my own.
Hmm.
I think that's really why it's triggering. I don't feel empowered. I don't feel like I trust that I know that I'm really solid on my own true north. And even if I was, even if it was the thing that I think it is, I don't feel clarity or empowerment to dive into it right now.
And you don't think that people need to hear that? You know, when we see other people's stories of struggle and see how they've had to practice and how they've had to walk through it, that's empowerment. You said it, we talked about it on the last episode, how the parts of Rob's story that moved you the most were his stories. You are sharing your stories, and you may not feel empowered right now, but you cannot tell me that within the last year you haven't. I probably have recorded proof somewhere.
Oh, my friend told me yesterday that I had a good cry that needed to come out.
Well, looks like it might
There
be
you go.
here.
There you go,
Might be
Tad.
here.
Wow.
You are the very thing. That's your true north right there. That is it. It's you owning all of this, recognizing where you are on your journey, knowing that you're stumbling right now.
Real lives in a real place telling real stories.
That is
Oh.
the whole reason we started this in the first place.
Well, shit. See, this is what living in your ego mind protects you from, everybody.
Mhm. But would anybody relate to that? We wouldn't have those reviews. We wouldn't have those followers. We wouldn't have our tribe if this didn't happen. And that's the crazy thing is sometimes your true north life is really hard.
It doesn't feel very true northy.
Yeah. But you're going to
Maybe
come out on the other side. You're going to come out on the other side.
maybe the closest thing we ever have to a true north is the pursuit of our own true north.
Right, but I think that's kind of what we've been saying, especially in the last month or
Like
two, is like it's not the destination.
the act of trying to figure it out is the
Is
thing.
the true north.
People don't find enlightenment. What is it? People don't stop looking for enlightenment when they find it. They find it when they stop looking.
Yeah, exactly. Buddha. Yeah.
Well,
So
okay.
and you know what? Another piece to this puzzle. It's like when you put something out there, like you have to first put it out there before you know. It has to get flushed out before you really know. Okay, now we know. Let's make a course on how to find your true north. Like all that. This is all that
Mhm.
it's done. And that may mean we create the course based on how we're figuring out ourselves, but then that's just going to make it a really good course, right? Like
Yeah, we should
we're
just
just
tell our life
fleshing out the
stories. That's
details.
the whole
Yeah.
course. Like, here's
That,
our
yes.
biography. Now go do a thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I am excited for this course. If we decide to go do it, we'll promote it on here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, that other thing that we were even having that meeting about,
Hmm.
I'm super excited. We're gonna make
I
a thing. We're
know.
making a thing. There you
Yes.
go. We haven't talked about it since we had that meeting. We were
I
like, we're gonna
know.
have a plan to follow up. That didn't happen. It's the holidays. But holy fuck, we've got some really
Wait
cool
for
stuff for
it.
next year.
Yes. Yes, we do. See?
Okay. Now do you want to talk about
Yeah,
gratitude?
we'll do it. The quick and dirty version, my quick fire version
Yours will be quick and
of
mine will be
grat.
dirty.
Oh, jeez. That's what she said.
I'm gonna squelch this gratitude.
Oh gosh, I have so many things. I have so many things. Hmm. Okay, I will choose this one. I am very grateful for the family that runs my son's school. They are just incredibly giving, kind-hearted people that care about kids. They care about their, you know, brain development, their body development, their emotional development, all of it. And just, you can just tell they put a lot of hours, a lot of time into making this school what it is. And I just get to reap the benefits, and Patrick gets to reap the benefits. And um, it's just amazing what they're putting out into the world. They saw a need, they were passionate about it, they've gone after it, and it seriously is changing even my kid's life. And I just really am grateful for them for just
Mm,
going after a dream. So,
that's incredible.
yeah.
Um,
How about you?
now I just want to shout out to every single like educator and caretaker and all the people out there whose job it is to take care of little people while their parents go do something else. Like we're
Yeah.
like we're let's stay in that
And they
gratitude
want
for a second.
to.
Yeah, you go
Yes.
to school, you spent like your college dollars and time on that. Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
I mean, angels among us. That like
Yep.
I just want to second that gratitude and just be like, you guys are all awesome. And if you know anybody in the audience, people, if you know anybody who's an educator or
Mhm.
a daycare worker or anything, like just reach out to them right now and just
Mhm.
say thank you for that.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
um my okay, so this is going to require a little bit of backstory, but we know if you've been tracking with us this whole time that I entered the world of the jobless at the beginning of this year.
Mhm.
And then with a 2-part episode in which you convinced me to stop job hunting. It's called, for those of you who want to go find it, it's called Abby Convinces Ryan to Stop Job
Stop
Hunting,
jumping.
part 1 and part 2.
Ah.
And then I ran out of money.
Mhm.
So now I'm job hunting.
Mhm.
But I my experience with job hunting, other than the fact that the market is just saturated because of how many people lost their jobs to the Rona,
Yeah.
my resume is so intimidating to hiring managers because of the things I've done.
Yeah.
The one thing I hear the most often is, you are overqualified for this position. We're going to give it to some fresh out of college young blood who wants to start a career doing this one thing.
Mhm.
Whereas I'm a multi-potentialite, I'm multifaceted. There's a lot of stuff that I can do really well that I've done for some people and some companies that people have heard of.
Mhm.
And so it's either that or it's, hey, we think you're a great fit for this job that's 60 hours a week where we're going to overpay you and overwork you and you're going to manage a whole department and a whole blah 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 blah, right? Like, and I'm not in it for that right now.
Mm.
I don't need that kind of job. And so the only job that I have actually been able to land is stocking shelves
Hmm.
at the dollar store.
Okay.
I am making as much as at this job. I'm making less at this job than I made at my first job after getting married.
Okay. I'm like, I know we didn't pay you much at the Y, so it's got to be more than that.
It The only job I've ever had that paid less was when I was working in the warehouse for Blockbuster Video,
Oh, wow.
doing the same
That goes way back.
12-second task for 12 hours at a time with 2 bathroom breaks.
Wow.
This gets paid just more than that. I'm going to make as much in a week at this job as I did in a day at my last job.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful for it.
Hmm.
Well, there are 2 really big reasons I took this job. A, because this money is more than $0. And
Yes.
it's actually weirdly flexible enough for me to continue to try to find a better job while I'm doing this. So like, I'm still on the job hunt front. I'm acting like I don't have a job because I
Mhm.
basically don't have a job. But the second reason I took this job was because the day they reached out to try to hire me, the night before, I had a dream that I was at a gala with Kim Kardashian and Gal Gadot, and they were in their fancy, sparkly dresses. And I don't know why I was there, but they were like, "We're bored. Let's go somewhere." And they were like naming off all these super exclusive speakeasies and stuff. And I suggested, "Why don't we go to the fucking dollar store?" In my dream. And they were
The
like,
night
"Why?"
before.
These 2 A-listers were like, "Why would we do that?" I'm like, "Because that's the last place anybody would expect you to go from
Mhm.
here, being
Mhm.
you. And then we can, like, if I get my phone out and video people's reactions to you in a dollar store, that shit would go viral." And the last thing in that dream I remember is being in a limo
Uh.
with these 2 people on their way to the dollar store. And then that day I get a call. It's like, "Hey, we want to pay you $10 an hour to put Hallmark cards on a thing." And I'm like, "Yes, I'll do it." And so I'm grateful for this job because I've only been working on it for a couple days and I've already learned a lot about myself. I've learned a
Hmm.
lot about my ego. I've learned a lot about where I place my value. I
Hmm.
have cried. I have talked to people who have kind of coached me through what it's like to process going from what I've been doing to this.
Mhm.
Um, And I mean, it has been emotionally, I've been through the ringer, learning how to process what it's like to live in the reality, be present with what is when this is what is. I'm going to leave this interview and then go spend the next 5 hours stocking shelves and miss saying goodnight to my son. But what it's digging up is stuff that I need to look at and I need to process and I need to work with and work through. And some of my best friends, when they talk about what they admire about their own dads, the first thing they go to is a story of a time that he did anything to put food on the table for them. And wasn't above anything. I don't know if he'll ever know that at this point in my life, I took this job because it was the only thing that was available to me. But he also won't know what it's like to really, 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 really go broke. So there's a lot to be grateful for there. And I'm grateful for all that because I'm choosing to be, but also because I'm recognizing that it is a gift and it's full of all kinds of opportunities to really learn about myself.
I'm also hearing resilience in there because it's not a place you want to stay.
No, this is very much temporary.
Yeah.
And the second somebody with a better job hires, like extends an offer, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got some stuff in the works. I've got a job I've been trying to get for the last couple of weeks, ironically, as someone who's going to help them clean up their organization skills. And, you know, they've been batting this around for a while. You know, I've got someone who's thinking about hiring me to ghostwrite their next book. I've got stuff that's happening. It's just that this is the thing that happened first, you know? So it's not like I'm relegating myself to this being my future indefinitely.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that doesn't make it that doesn't make it more fun to actually be
Yeah.
in this spot, just knowing that it's temporary. So,
but if you view it as an opportunity for growth,
which it is,
and growth is not always fun.
No, it's rarely fun,
but it's necessary.
But having done growth, being on the other side of growth that's pretty fun.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, the first I've been posting Rob Bell quotes from the interview on our Instagram, and the first one I almost captioned, I interviewed Rob Bell and then I changed a poopy diaper. If you know me, you know what I'm saying, and if you don't, then it could be misinterpreted in a lot of different ways. But like, such is life, right? Such is life. So I'm in it. I'm in the middle of it, and
everything is copy.
Everything is copy, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for letting me. Well, this is the last episode of this calendar year.
Goodbye, 20. No, wait.
Yeah.
No, next episode is the last episode because
it'll
air on. It'll air on the
it'll
1st.
Air on we're recording it on the 31st, but it'll air on the 1st. We will bring in the new year with a fresh.
Okay, it
podcast.
Is. Goodbye, 2020. Yeah.
It's been nice knowing you. We've all grown and learned a lot. I'm very grateful for all the lessons you brought for us to learn. Till next time, everybody. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being there.
Bye.